Welcome back to the Kingsway podcast.
Good morrow. That's what I feel. How I feel like talking after this. This book.
Oh my gosh, it was such a good book.
It is.
I haven't finished it. I gotta be honest.
We need to do some housekeeping before we get to the book. This is our November pick for the Kingsway Podcast Book Club. We are not going to have a December pick. Enjoy your time with your family. We will announce the January selection on the first episode of the new year.
I think we haven't talked about this fully, but I think next year we're going to go every other month. One person gets to choose.
Yeah.
So it'll be, I think I chose this one, so you'll be the first up in January.
And I'm choosing the encyclopedia.
Oh, gosh. And you have to have a physical copy too, right? You can't have someone read it to you. You got to read it yourself.
Yes.
Other housekeeping things, we did it. We read all the books.
Yeah. We read at least most of all the books we talked about this year.
It's true that you read way more than I did, but we won't talk about that.
Yeah. This, because of this year and us trying it out for the first time, we want to know what you liked, what you didn't like. Did you read any of these books? Did you just listen to us talk about books, which is totally okay?
Which was your favorite?
And use that to decide, would you even possibly want to read those?
Yeah.
Which is perfectly acceptable. Let us know in the comments. And if you did read along, even if you didn't, which one was your favorite book or episode on a book? Let us know, because that'll help us identify what kind of books we should do in the future. And if you don't tell us, Encyclopedia Britannica, Volume 17 is coming your way, January 26th.
Well, I really enjoyed this book to the level that I've gotten. What I was thinking about as we were preparing.
And to be clear, the book it's in the title, but it's Gilead by Marilynne Robinson. I heard that it was Gilead, and I assume that's how you say the town in Iowa.
Yep.
But even though the word is Gilead, just like Miami, Oklahoma versus Miami, spelled the same, but you say it different. I didn't hear this audiobook reader say Gilead a single time.
Well,
I heard him say
Gilead
a bunch.
Your wife was just asking me, like, where does the word Gilead come from? And I go, I think it's a town. I was like, I couldn't even remember.
Yes. So it's Gilead, Iowa. I'm assuming very west Iowa, because he talked about how close it was to Kansas.
Yep.
Yes. It's one of those border towns. I'm assuming Louisiana Purchase or something like that.
Well, it's kind of like Kansas City, right? It's like it's close enough that you're like, is this Kansas or is this Missouri?
There's something seemingly more wild about Kansas and untamed about Kansas than where they were in Iowa. So he talked about that very late.
It's the time period too, though. It's the time period in the late 1800s. Kansas is the Dust Bowl. Some of that stuff is pretty gnarly. Well, here's what I was thinking. It
was also a biblical region, by the way.
That's what I was going to say.
Familiar.
I was going to say it. I kept thinking
not in the story, but yeah.
I loved the reader of this book. I really enjoyed the reader. There's something about when a reader reflects what I feel like the character that is being exposed sounds similar to.
Yeah.
That it makes it come alive.
So the main character in this book is an old preacher named John Ames.
76-year-old John Ames.
And he's writing these letters to his very young son, his only son, 8-year-old, so that his 8-year-old can get to know him when he grows up. Because the 8-year-old, when he's grown up, will have better understanding.
Spoilers coming, by the way. So
that's fine.
Yep.
I feel like that was in the premise that we read, though.
Yeah, you better. Like it's for sure.
It's not that part isn't itself a spoiler, but we are going to talk about spoiler things in the book. So just be aware,
because the big spoiler is he's dying and he's not told anyone.
Well, sorta, but he's failing and everybody knows it. Like he doesn't have cancer or anything. He's just failing.
Yep. We don't know what that means. To me, he talks about, though, he feels like life is slipping away. Yeah. And like it's short and he knows he's not going to be, around for a long time. And he does feel like there's lots of things he wants to explain to his son that he's not going to be able to because he's not going to be old enough to talk about.
I think it's set in the 50s or so, maybe 60s.
Well, he said he was born in 1882. So if he's 76,
then he's a bunch of years old.
So that's 20 is 2006 or 2002.
Nope.
Or 1902. So that would be...
I'm going to 1882.
1958.
Yes. My brain did not want to do that math.
So 1958.
56, 58, somewhere in there. It may go over the course of more than a year. Mm-hmm. I can't tell if it does. I don't think it does seasonally.
And I think that's because it's written more like a letter to his son.
The audiobook, I'm wondering if the main book has this too, has 169 chapters, but is 8 hours. We've read 8-hour books that are like 20 or less chapters.
I was say 15 chapters.
So a lot of those chapters are really, really short because they're as if they are that guy penning a journal entry in this book that he wants to give his son.
And that's part of the story is he's a writer, and he talks about how many sermons that he's written over the course of his life.
Yeah.
And he has these cabinets. It's like over 67,000 pages of manuscripted sermons. And that's kind of the premise that when Ryan and I were talking about this, he kind of gave me a heads up of like, hey, it's a kind of a unique start, and it started a little slow. And but man alive, the book follows this main character who is the son of a preacher. And he himself is a preacher and has been for 40 years or something, 50 years?
He's 76. I'm assuming he's been since 20
Since
or
20, so 50 plus years.
So he said he went to seminary, so maybe like 22 or 24,
but
like that, about 50
And
years.
he's just reflecting on ministry, and the beginning of the book is much more about his grandfather and his father and like his childhood and some of the things that occurred early on in his life and the tragedy that he's been through.
Yeah. This book felt to me, let's talk a little bit about genre.
Yeah.
It felt to me like Little Women. Now it's not, but it felt to me like Little Women in that it is a long story without one main overarching covering most of the book conflict and resolution. There is sort of a conflict and resolution
at the end,
but it's not like Infinity War. It's not like
no, you're not building towards a
villain
boss
out there or something. Most of the book, a lot of it is like getting to know people and their life. So Little Women is a bunch of little conflicts, but they're just life points. They aren't the Galactic Empire is trying to like keep us impoverished and not let us marry a noble. It's just that they're living a life and the struggles that come with their life.
Well, it feels like that's the point of the book is at the end, John Ames is, you know him. You know him really well. You know what he's been through. You know what the current conflicts he's in. You know the resolutions. You know his heart. Even some of the struggles. I mean, a lot of this hit like home for me because I am the son of a preacher or at least a pastor. And then I myself have been in ministry for a number of years, and I have a 10-year-old. And so I'm thinking like, wow, if I was 35 years older, which is crazy to say.
You also have an 8-year-old.
Are
they 10, 12, and 14?
Mm-hmm.
Man, it's been 2
10,
years.
12, and
quick.
14 will be in about.
I thought they were 8, 10, and 12, and I was like, that math ain't mathing.
No, it's not anymore.
Hasn't been in a minute.
I did have an 8. I've had 3 8-year-olds at one point.
At different points.
At different points.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a level of like wow, and then even with the relationship with the brother and some of the conflicts and conversations in there, and like I really enjoyed. So here's the thing: I've read 2 books that this reminds me of deeply.
Yeah.
The first one that I think it aligns with the most is The Pastor, which is Eugene Peterson's own autobiography.
Yeah.
And it is like 20 hours long and like way more detailed and not written quite as poetically and beautifully as this. This book probably has some of the most quotable things that like I almost like had to pause the book and think about the thing that he had just said. Like I was like, what? Like that is such a
something
good line.
I was frustrated with about the book is that it's not a theology book.
But
so it's not meant for you to sit down and reflect on those and stop. It doesn't extrapolate all the stuff out of those ideas. He'll throw an idea that this fictional character's thought about for a while, and then it'll move on. And I'm like, stop! I need that for a little longer.
No joke. And it is. It felt very much so like you're sitting on the porch with this guy that's throwing these wise things out and then commenting about how pretty the flowers are.
Yeah.
Like he like threw this crazy quote out about grace, and then all of a sudden he's like, hey, do you want to go have some stew? And you're like, wait a second. You just that was the most quotable thing.
Yeah, this kind of cake and that kind of cake. And I'm like, go back to the good part.
Exactly.
But yeah, that was the frustrating part for me as a mostly nonfiction reader, mostly like theology book kind of reader, something in that vein. he would say these great things and then move on. And I was like, I needed more time to internalize that. I'm going to forget it.
And I think that's part of the reason why it reminds me of The Pastors. It's the same way, where it's Eugene Peterson's life story from being a butcher's son to all the way being this preacher at a town to being a theologian. And then the other book is All Is Grace by Brendan Manning. Both of those are, and that's also an autobiography of Brendan Manning. And that book is very similar, where it's like starts out, this is the start of life, and then just walks through and has some incredible quotes. Probably gives a little bit more pause that you would like, where he's kind of like just unfolds part of a theological thing that he was learning. Anyway, the pacing of this book and the way that it was written, one of the most restful books we've read all year.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed reading it. It didn't feel like work. I felt like there was little things that I laughed at that, of course, I was born in 1984 and he's born in 1882. And so in my mind, I'm going, so if I was just 100 years earlier, that would have been my life. That's wild to think about. And so, you know, even the thought of like what the next 100 years will look like, jump forward.
And I'm 80% sure about this, that Marilynne Robinson wrote 3 of these books, but they're not like
connected.
They are connected, but the way that he talked about his grandpa and fighting in the Civil War and being very pro-war because it's for a good cause, and then his dad and him being pacifists and whatever, and how their struggles there. She has 2 other books, and I think they're about the dad and the grandpa, or maybe the dad and then his son, or something like that. They're different generations, so they're related, but they're not like all about that one John Ames in different points in his life.
I think that's what caught my curiosity very quickly. And I know for you, I think you said the first half of the book was a little bit slower, blah, blah, blah. But
slow, but not bad.
No. I think you enjoyed the
not
second
bad
half
at all.
better.
Yeah,
I enjoyed the portions, and to be fair, I haven't finished. I'm like, I probably have an hour and a half to 2 hours left of the book, and so
you're about 85%.
And you know, at this point, I've read a little bit of it, and I've cheated a little bit to know how it ends, but I will finish it because I have enjoyed it.
I finished it.
You did,
just for clarity.
100%. You're the best.
Gold star.
But even talking about the labor of preaching and like how preaching through, they had this medical stuff going on with the Spanish flu, and like some of the stuff that he had to preach with like a mask on for like 8 months. And then he wrote this fiery sermon on like why this is coming on, because we did this horrible thing in the war.
Very, very pacifist message that's like, you were too bloodthirsty, and now look at what you've done to us.
This is God's hand of wrath.
Yeah.
And then he realized who he was going to be preaching it to is all these like widows and moms that had lost their kids. And he's like, yeah, that's not worth it.
They don't need this message. They
don't need this message. It's not for them.
Their kids who died needed this message. And so
it's too late. And I thought that was really, really well done, because he even said, he's like, I wonder if that's not maybe the best message I ever wrote that I never preached.
I burned it in the
fire.
I burned it
in the fire. It's the only thing I've ever burned. Yeah. And it was just, I don't know, there was points in that where I felt, I guess I felt similar things. I've just felt very, very similar things. So it felt really cool.
Yeah. If you've ever wondered, we're speaking as hired pastors. We have a job and we have a title and whatever. If you're sitting out there as a church person and you've ever wondered what it is like to be a pastor, what it's like to have people depend on you and think highly of you because of your position and hopefully your character too, but like what it's like to like tiptoe around being of an even higher moral standard and then even harsher moral judgments from people, and navigating grace when other people want to be more judgmental than you want to be, and navigating your own sin. And I don't even mean like big criminal, legally punishable sins, but just like anger or envy or whatever.
Oh, and he has that quote in there. He says, like, I've never been able to figure Jack out, and that pains me. Yeah. And that's like just this level of like, he can't figure out this character, this person that's in his life, and it just pains him that he can't figure it out. Like that he's either weighed down by frustration or weighed down by this impatience, or like, I don't trust you, and he can't figure out what to do next. And I'm like, gosh, I have felt that in ministry more than once. Yeah. Where I'm just like, I want to help. I don't know how to even figure you out.
If you've ever wanted to like get a grasp on what that's like, this is a great book.
It's a great book. It's a great book.
I loved it. There is I want to see what time it is right here. Okay, 15 minutes. there was a moment in the book where he was talking about a sermon he was going to write or preach or a question he had asked, and it dealt with a question we've asked before on here, which is dads in the Old Testament.
Yep.
You remember reading that?
I do.
So we before asked and then interviewed an Old Testament scholar. Are there any good dads in the Bible, in the Old Testament specifically? I think maybe there are a few cases of good dads in the New Testament, or at least
Joseph's father of Jesus seems to be one of the best.
But are there not perfect dads, but dads who don't do something grievous against their children and who are generally good and present? And the best dads are the dads out of omission.
Yep.
Joseph was great. Why?
Didn't do anything bad.
He died before he could do the worst stuff.
Job, he at least tried to help his kids.
Yeah. He was a better dad on the second try.
Yep.
That's a terrible joke. I'm so sorry. But he makes the opposite argument. Are there any bad fathers in the Old Testament? Now, he would claim that being a good father is following God, setting a good example. So I think he would also claim like Abram sacrificing Isaac, but then not actually going through with it because God stops him, to be a good dad. If you're like, well, he tried to kill his own son, he would probably say, but he made that argument, and I was like, I feel like that's so much easier to be like, well, not Judah and Tamar, maybe, but where maybe it is Judah and Tamar.
I think it is Judah and Tamar.
Where the older one,
or is Jacob?
Maybe, where he goes out and his son has died and his daughter-in-law is widowed, and she goes out and dresses up as a prostitute, and he sleeps with her, and she takes something from him, and hey, you owe me this or whatever. That's a terrible dad.
Terrible dad.
Now, he's not a direct bloodline dad to the daughter-in-law. That's a story from Genesis. Maybe 30,
I think that's right.
30s or so.
30-ish. Google it.
I want to say 37, but that I think is Sodom and Gomorrah.
That's
earlier.
I think that's
Abram.
Too soon for that to.
Anyway, so there's some terrible dads in the Old Testament.
Well,
but he brought it up again, and that made me think like,
well,
we did have those
and that's a part of like even the generational difference between what his grandpa and then his dad and then he was doing. That's part of, I think, the book is. I mean, when we make that argument from the Old Testament, what we're basically trying to say is like, would any dads in the Old Testament change a diaper? Would any of the dads from the Old Testament, were they gentle and nurturing and encouraging and helpful for their kids? You know, like, and it's like we couldn't find any.
Not overbearing, not whatever.
Yeah, like there's just none of that level. If it's like Jacob's like, has favorites and like doesn't, you know what I mean? Like you just go down the line and it doesn't go very well for most of the main characters, especially ones that end up being dads. I think what I love the most about this book, and look, I do have a couple negative things. I think the negative things is that though the like lack of like structure and the feeling of it, like journal entries, the looseness of it, it can feel a little bit like you're wandering more than you're like going somewhere. And that at times can make it a little difficult to pay attention.
Yep.
It's like talking to a grandparent that's like wandering the conversation around, and you're like, I love this. I'm having so much fun, but also what are we talking about?
Yeah. And that's both a drawback for the reader and a benefit for the reader because it feels like somebody who's actually John Ames is writing it.
Oh, and
it feels
audiobook
like
is so you just feel like you're in the room with him and he's just telling stories.
Yeah.
And what's crazy is that's also the best part of the book is the tone of the book is so incredibly consistent. You feel like
and honest.
It is. It feels authentic the whole time. This character, it stays true. How they think about people, talk about things,
being in love.
Oh, some of the
chapter
most
142
beautiful.
or 143. I can't remember.
And just the beauty of life itself, and like waking up every day is a gift, and like realizing that and being grateful for that, and like the thought of like everything is held together by things that we don't understand and the mystery of it. It's a beautiful book. In that way, it really did feel like if you could sit a 76-year-old man down and just go, tell me what I need to know.
Yeah.
And from his perspective, that's kind of what the book ends up being. And it does feel like you're meandering around a lot, but it also at times you're like, I should really listen to that.
Yeah.
I should really
This
write
is
that
such
down.
a wise, non-real person.
Yes.
Yeah. One other thing I loved about the book, although I feel like he doesn't get way into it, but you kind of learn through implication a bunch, is the benefit and the beauty of the local church being a group of people and being loyal to them and them being loyal to you over a long amount of time. So he talks near the end of the book, which you didn't get to.
I did not
this
get
part.
to.
I know, because it was in the last 30 minutes. He talks about how when he was a kid or like a late teen, early 20s, maybe back from seminary for a little bit, that his grandpa was very old. This sounds sort of right. Maybe his dad or something like that. Or maybe his grandma. Anyway, they're very old and they moved somewhere south and warmer. And his parents were going to move down there to help them get settled in and then come back. And so his dad was the preacher at this church. They all moved away and he took over the pulpit kind of temporarily until they came back. And then they never did, except for twice. Once when his first wife and daughter died, and then some other time, I don't remember why. But they came back for those two instances. And so I think he wanted to be this profession, but he tripped and fell into being here. This is his family church, at least for his dad. And at the same time, his whole family abandoned them and the church was his family. And so like when him talking kind of tongue in cheek about how the only way that the women in the church know how to love somebody grieving is with a copious amount of food.
Yeah.
And so like this and that and this casserole and I had these 4 cakes to choose from for dessert and whatever and whatever. But the implication is like they are thinking about him. They do love him and want the best for him and his family. And even if there are higher expectations, there's also like higher visibility of his troubles and they'll jump to care for that. But then also how they'll do that for each other and how he'll be the person like trying to help facilitate and pass around information. They may do it amongst themselves really well, but he'll be a part of that and try to like shepherd people to take care of people without gossiping, without whatever. Even how between churches, when his friend, the old man Bowden, struggles with stuff or has something happen, how he's like very, very Methodist casseroles will show up at his church. And when I've been hurting, surprisingly Presbyterian casseroles have showed up at mine. And just the way he talked about that in the small town community and the church community, more than the faith aspect, than the specific like list of beliefs, the like close-knit family kind of thing that's going on in a church was really evident.
It felt very, very good. It felt like a warm hug a lot. Where you're like, this is what you want the world to feel like. There's a couple sections that I would like to touch on. Yeah. Maybe a section that sticks out to you like that one. But one of the things that he talks about is the irreplaceability of looking at another person's face.
Yeah.
Do you remember that section?
Yeah.
He talks about it specifically because there's this early tragedy in his life with his first wife dies giving birth to his daughter, and his daughter does not live for very long either. In fact, he says the gift that he got was to at least hold her before she died.
Yeah.
And he said that
You're assuming it's like hours or less.
Yeah. And he got to look at her face, and he still can picture it. Yeah. And he was talking about how that is something that when the Bible or when the scripture says God turns his face to you or turn your face to the Lord is because there's something unique in every face. No face is exactly the same as another. And it's like your individual ID. And it talks about the divinity of it, the like almost like the beauty of recognizing when you look at another person's face, it is the only face you will ever see that looks like that. Yeah. And how to ignore that or to pretend like that's not amazing is kind of a missed opportunity. And I thought that was really cool. I never thought of it like that. But you can tell as somebody that's much older than I am and has looked at a lot of faces to be able to still remember a unique face after all that time, that would stick with you. So I don't know. I thought that was a cool concept that I don't think I will forget from the book. is beauty. And then talking about marrying his second wife and just the love that he thought was going to be gone and that he wouldn't get a chance to experience.
Yeah.
And waking up one day and realizing that he does have a wife and he does have a child after thinking he wouldn't ever again.
After thinking that sort of like Job, after it was taken away.
Yep.
And he thought, that's the end of that.
Yep. And then he's like, one day he wakes up and he realizes he has this small child and he has this beautiful wife and God's been good. And so I don't know, there was those two things stuck out to me. Obviously those are in the first half of the book, and there's some other the conflict I think that was coming right before I ended with a character that I'm kind of watching him struggle more with how to love and like what to do, and with forgiveness and pride, rather than the first half is much more of just reflective, positive lessons. So I am excited to see how the end of the book does unfold.
Yeah. Trying to think about which part to go to next. I'm not going to go to the spoiler at the end part. I really loved the conversations about this is another like ministry family sort of thing, especially small church pastors, lead pastors of smaller or medium-ish sized churches, where you don't have 20 staff people or whatever. He describes his grandpa, mostly through his dad's recollection, but his grandpa being really reckless in a lot of ways. More wanting to be principled right than he does want to be caring to individuals, people with names and faces and whatever. Yeah. And so that's the thing that led his grandpa to want to join the war effort and be an abolitionist, be a Union soldier, and fight the Confederacy and fight slavery and free all these people for the idea of it. The same thing happened with them giving away money, though. Yeah, giving away possessions, stories giving away whatever, where people would come and have needs. And I assume their church was poor enough that like they don't have a big treasury to just shovel out gold coins with. Yep. And so his dad would like rummage through anything and give away anything, the clothes off his back, the sheets and blankets off their beds. And his mom would, John Ames' grandma would scramble to replace it. And so she'd even be hiding coins in like the flour in the kitchen, in the tea, and the tea lard, or whatever. Originally hid it in the flour, but then he could shake it and hear that there were coins in there, and they would go get them. So she'd hide them in the lard where it's like not going to move around. And just like how he was recklessly giving everything away, and how his dad tried to fight against that, still be generous and still give stuff away, but like be a lot more careful. Yeah. And how that was a thing that like, so John Ames' dad was always being stolen from by John Ames' grandpa. Yep. To give to people he hadn't even met before. Yep. So he's like, he's always the butt of the joke. He doesn't care about his family as much as he cares about people he's never met.
And which it feels like John Ames has gone the complete opposite direction, where he cares about everything.
Maybe not complete opposite.
But philosophy.
The center line.
Because he cares way more about faces and caring for people and knowing their story and wanting to take care of them and thinking very intensely about all the relationships in his life and wanting them to be in good, good positions and good status. And I do think that as much as it can be challenging to like get a consciousness onto a page, like get internal consciousness onto a page, that might be this book's greatest strength, is it feels like the internal dialogue of the main character is so freely and intensely and intentionally written that you feel like you're in this person's head the whole time. Yeah. And it's wild because after a while, it feels, at least for myself, I kept going like, does everybody have these thoughts? Because these feel like so many of my thoughts. Yeah. Like it feels very similar to a lot of the internal dialogues that sometimes I have. And so it was like a little bit of like, geez Louise, the human condition is a lot more, we're a lot more alike than anything different. Like we have so many similar struggles. And
what I really loved is how the author painted John Ames to be a good man, not because the ways that we often assume that person is good and that person is bad, but he's a good man because he fights to be a good man, because he struggles with like I said, anger and jealousy and whatever, but he constantly fights himself so that he can be or remain a good man. So, for instance, one of the main villain in the story, big finger quotes there.
Yeah.
The main villain in the story is his friend Bowden's son, one of many, who Bowden named after John Ames. So this guy's name is John Ames Bowden.
Yeah.
Jack for short. And Jack is like the opposite of John Ames. John Ames is a saint. He is a preacher. He is a dependable, faithful man. And John Ames Bowden, Jack, is a like frequent criminal, liar, thief,
Despicable.
prankster for in John Ames' words, for the sheer meanness of something. Not because it'll hurt, not because it's like worth something to him, but because it's worth something to you. He will do something to keep it from you.
Yeah.
As a kid, especially. So one of the things, that's kind of the main villain in the story, but it's John Ames trying to work to love this kid, even though he just naturally hates him and everything he does offends him and annoys him and whatever. The main like conflict, the pinnacle of the conflict with the meanness of Jack is that he comes home from college. He goes from Christian to atheist. He comes home from college and is going to go back in a little bit. And he sleeps with an underage girl and gets her pregnant. This is before, especially in Gilead, Iowa, DNA testing and paternity testing was huge and widely available. And so he just doesn't claim the child. He just doesn't publicly acknowledge the child that's coming out from him and this girl who I'm assuming is somewhere between like 13 and 16 from a very white trash poor house and family. They describe it with like dogs all over the place, broken glass in the front yard, trash and
not the desirable place.
Yeah. And he knocks up this girl, doesn't acknowledge her, but tells his parents because of the guilt. So his parents are racked with huge guilt as well now. And they try to go over and like offer money and clothes and can we raise this child? Can we take care of it for you? Take off your hands. And the family is very not receptive and whatever. And so the child is born. He refuses the whole time, Jack, to acknowledge his paternity in the situation. His parents give clothing and even shoes to this child and then come back later and the child's barefoot and they're like, where are the shoes we gave him? And the mother's like, I'm saving him. It's like a whatever kind of answer. And then the child at about 3.5 years old cuts their foot in the lawn on a piece of glass, gets infected, dies.
Yep.
And so I think that's one of the things, along with the sheer meanness of stuff.
It's probably the saddest part of the book.
Yeah. Along with the sheer meanness of other acts that Jack does. This is one of those like nearly unforgivable things for John Ames. I say nearly because he would love to forgive and show grace, but he's so angry at the injustice of this.
Well, and it's because of the transposed, like he had a child that he couldn't, that he didn't get to raise. He lost his daughter or lost his first wife, to this thing, lost his daughter. And I think for him, it's like, I would have given anything to have had the chance to,
And he had a bajillion chances to give literally anything.
Yep.
Just even the smallest thing and refused to do so.
And it's sat in juxtaposition to that. I was looking at a couple quotes that, because I wanted it, because some of these quotes are just amazing. One on grace that's in that section is, grace is the greater gift, is the great gift, so rarely understood and never deserved.
Yeah.
It's so good. Forgiveness is the only real power I know. Isn't that crazy? It's just such, like, he would just, and here's the funny thing, it would spit these lines out and they'd be like, and then tomorrow we just went on the picnic, and you're like, wait, what the heck was that? Like, wait, hold on, pause the book.
Yeah.
Like, because it was so good. I think that's part of why I'm looking forward to finishing the book, is because the character seems to have a fullness to it. It doesn't just live in La La Land or talk about the fun stories. It also talks about the nitty gritty, the heartache, the disappointment, the frustration.
Yeah.
A couple quotes that are kind of cool. Just a couple more. There's thousands and thousands of reasons to live this life, and every one of them is sufficient. And I was like, ooh. It has seemed to me sometimes as though the Lord breathes on this poor gray ember of creation.
Yeah.
Like he feels like he's this poor gray ember and God's breathing life, bringing back that spark. Anyway, there are so many cool things in this book. I almost feel like we've done a great job of like, you should go read this.
Yeah.
Like you would enjoy it.
We hit some highlights.
And that's part of the reason why we're not reading in December is I feel like this would be a book that
if you haven't read it yet, go and read it.
Go read it. It would be
if there's one you
book.
missed from this year that you didn't read, but you read a bunch of others, read that one.
Yeah.
If you haven't read any of them, this would be a good one. But also look for our episodes and find one you want to read. And
there's a couple
read it
of
during
them
the
that are
holidays.
excellent. I would say this was the one that would, if you're looking for something to pull up on a couch and pull on a blanket and just read something kind of cozy, man, you're going to feel better when you get done reading. You're going to feel a little lighter. You might even have a thought that dances around your head that the Spirit could use. I just felt, I felt every time I read this, it felt uplifting and it felt
and
good.
Restful,
absolutely.
Yeah. So if you want a restful book for the holidays, pick Gilead by Marilynne Robinson. If you want these are all from this year, by the way, the ones we've been reading. If you want a self-excavating book, read The Gift of Being Yourself.
The Gift of Being Yourself.
If you want a self-growth book, read Your Future Self Will Thank You.
Or As for Getting Out of Bed. Or As for
Getting Out of Bed. I feel like that's also an excavating book. Because it doesn't have tons of tips. It's more motivational than it is.
I just feel like the seasonal depression or if things are rough, like if things aren't feeling great. As for Getting Out of Bed is
On Getting Out of Bed.
On Getting Out
of Bed by Alan Noble.
Yes, it's such a good book and it's slept on, especially even if you don't read the second half. Just read the first half. The second half is fantastic.
Super short book.
Yeah. But just, I think it would be something to be encouraging. But I think this is a restful choice. Like you wouldn't even have to finish this book. You could stop at any point and you'd still enjoy it.
I do know the next book I want to suggest, although
it's not till
we're not going to do it yet.
Not till January.
But here's what I'll say. It does deal with the loneliness and community and the church stuff that we talked about from Gilead.
Mm-hmm.
It is by Alan Noble, who wrote On Getting Out of Bed. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay. Well, if you enjoyed this podcast and you enjoyed the book, make sure you let us know. I mean, if you've read it, this has also been out for a really long time. So there's some people that might have read
2000 something, 2, 3, 4.
2 or 3 or 4. I think it's almost 20 years old. So I think there's a level of like, you might have read this earlier than us and you've been like, yeah, you didn't know this book.
Maybe you had to read this in high school and you were like, so old and boring. Try it again. It's better. It got better with time.
Oh man, especially if you've been in the church for a long time, I think it's a really enjoyable thing. And like Ryan said, you want to know what it's like to be in pastoral ministry in a small town
without doing it.
Yeah, read it. You know what I mean? Like this is it'd be a snapshot.
Last thing I want to say, just as a reminder, please let us know which of the episodes, if you didn't read any of the books, or which of the books that we talked about that you did read, which ones were your favorite, why, whatever. Just tell us so that we can make some good informed decisions moving forward.
In 2026, that's so weird to say. Weird. Well, as always, leave a like or share this. Leave us a review. It helps us kind of know the direction we need to go. It also helps the algorithm to get some people to get a chance to hear about this awesome book in our podcast. Yeah, we're just trying to learn, and we love learning. That's basically what we do on the podcast, and we're going to continue to. Sometimes we talk about nativity scenes and dragons.
And sometimes we talk about a fake old guy.
Well, as always, hopefully you'll subscribe and tune in for the next time. Until then, have a great and glorious day in the Lord. We'll see you later.
See you.